Okay, and we're back. Took me a little bit of, had to rearrange my time today. It's been a pretty busy morning. So anyway, and I was trying out some new eye makeup, different eye makeup types. I'm not sure if I like this one or not. I think I need more practice. Okay, anyway, that's just my beginning. I want to talk about aliens today. I'm going to jump right into it because I don't have a lot of time today. I'm kind of squeezing this in on some other stuff I wanted to get done. So while I have the house to myself, I wanted to get a stream up. So we're going to talk about aliens and talk about what's going on with all the alien talk and the alien sightings and all the alien documentaries. And I've seen it everywhere lately, so I want to get into it and talk about it. And why the aliens always look the same. Very rarely you see anyone draw an alien that doesn't look like every alien we've seen in every movie. You know, with the big eyes and the and the head. They always look kind of the same. And I think that's kind of a funny kind of commentary on why. So we're going to talk about that a little bit too. Okay. I will get this question quite a bit. It borders right on the question with religion. People want to talk about aliens. You know, what do you think about aliens? Do you believe in aliens? Or how do aliens relate to ascension? And why do people see aliens? Or it's kind of like, do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in God? You know, it's kind of one of those, it's on one of those tiers, right? It's never like the separate thing. Aliens always get lumped into everything else because it's almost like a Bigfoot sighting. Do you believe in Bigfoot? Do you believe in mermaids? What about, what was it? The Loch Ness Monster. Where do you fall on the Loch Ness Monster? All these kind of mythical things. You know, where do we fall on these things? What do we believe when it comes to these things? How do these things relate? And why are all of a sudden aliens kind of back in the news? Whereas before, it kind of started out, aliens were kind of like this thing in the 30s and 40s that people kind of said they saw, or they would get stuff in the sky, but no one really wanted to talk about it, or it seemed maybe a little more accepted then. It's a little weird, something going on, but we're not sure what it is. All the conspiracy theory about aliens, it's aliens, aliens, aliens. It's always been this constant kind of whisper, you know, do they exist? What's going on? And then it got through a period where it was almost kind of continuously debunked, right? Continuously debunked, continuously debunked, continuously debunked. Why do people see them? Why do some people not see them? I'm sorry, the cat's about to lay down right under the tripod. Okay. I'm waiting for him to like completely topple it over. Why some people see them, some people don't? Why do they not look like humans? You know, because when you watch certain things on TV, if you go to even some of the Marvel movies, a lot of the aliens look like humans. You know, you have people like Thor, he looks human. You got Star-Lord, he looks human. A lot of the aliens kind of look like people. Some of them don't, but a lot of them do. Why don't we ever see aliens that look like us? Why don't they look human? Why do every time someone has an alien sighting, they always have the big bug eyes and the face? So when we're talking about aliens, mermaids, Sasquatch, we're always talking about aspects of us. And now this is not something you hear a lot of people talk about, especially with the aliens, even with mermaids and things like that. Everything is an aspect of us. You know, I've been with tons of people who have talked about seeing aliens, especially people, if you know a lot of people in the military, they'll always talk about seeing ships. I had one friend that said they saw a ship in the water, and it kind of was really deep underwater, and it went up and then it went into the sky. And this is not a person that, you know, would just talk about this type of stuff. This is someone that when they talk about something like that, you're like, oh, that's, you know, okay. And so you just hear it all over the place. But everything is an aspect of us. Everything is part of us. And just like when you talk about a ghost, you know, we'll see stuff on the outside because we haven't embodied it yet on the inside. A lot of times we'll see things that we don't feel comfortable embodying, don't feel comfortable in transcending, and it's outside of us. We talk a lot about the soul being outside the body. When I say the soul's not in the body, everyone's like, what do you mean the soul's not in the body? It's like the soul's not technically in the body. The soul's outside the body. A lot of our aspects are outside the body too. They're in higher frequency bandwidths, so we have to get to certain frequencies to be able to even see them, feel them, and some are in lower frequency bandwidths, depending on if you're trying to transcend something or trying to embody something higher. When you talk about galactic intelligence, we talk a lot on here about galactic intelligence. We talk a lot on here about embodying in our galactic aspects. Yet when people see an alien, that, for whatever reason, makes it feel more real. But we never see them to look like us. Now, when a lot of us start remembering galactic realities, galactic dimensions, galactic war, galactic realities, whether you feel you participate in them or not, whether you believe, some people will talk about how Earth is kind of a galactic prison where we all kind of came here to clear our galactic karma. There is such a thing as galactic karma. A lot of times you might start dreaming about being in galactic wars. A lot of people will feel more comfortable embodying in their galactic aspects before they'll embody in their soul aspects, because it doesn't have the attachment and digging through your shit like the soul aspects do. All that stuff to clear for your soul to get in the body. Galactic aspects have a lighter feel in a lot of ways. They have they're a more no nonsense feel. They have a lot more. They do come with that galactic intelligence. They come with a greater understanding of things, but they don't come with a love for humanity. Okay, they never come with that. Okay, they don't have that. That's why you always have to couple it with the soul. The soul awareness. If you don't do the soul journey and embodying in the soul aspects, you're missing a part of it. Because the galactic aspects will, though they are very important, and there's kind of two sides of the same coin when we talk about embodiment, galactic aspects need the soul aspect, because without it, it doesn't have a love for humanity, and it keeps that detachment. It keeps that almost in a way a separation, and it doesn't feel that merging with humanity. But it does have a very important purpose, and these aspects have a very important purpose. And when you see people channeling galactic councils, you see all this stuff about galactic stuff, but that's kind of put over here as the woo-woo kind of stuff. But if someone sees an alien, well, that shit's now mainstream. Wait a minute, you're just talking about channeling stuff, which to people always feels, I guess, a little ethereal and a little not real. But if I actually see one, now you have my attention. Now I'm a little curious, because now all these people are seeing one. We had the big one in Las Vegas months ago. I don't know, weeks ago. I did see that one where the cops saw something, and then they actually were like, well, we saw it too. That's why we're here. But we kind of don't connect the two, because even when we're in embodiment, you're going to find people are usually channeling. They're usually trying to embody. They're normally trying to work with galactic races that look like humans. We don't feel comfortable when we start seeing different pictures of different galactic races that don't look like humans. That we don't really, it clears this, it has a certain fear in our body. Even when we're just talking about embodiment, and when we're talking about embodying in those aspects, when we talk about an alien that might be more reptilian in nature, let's say, that kind of freaks us out. And it can cause a lot of fear to come up. Well, that can't be me. I can't have an aspect like that. I want to look like a lot of people talk about the Palladians. And a lot of people will channel Palladians because Palladians look more like human. So it's kind of it's the gateway to the galactic aspects, because it's the one that looks more like we do. We don't have a guard up about it. We don't have all that stuff up about it, right? Because it looks like us. So when you see people channeling, notice a lot of times they channel Palladians, and sometimes they might get into channeling something else. But just a reminder about channeling: you can't channel something that's not you. They're still channeling an aspect of them. It's just a galactic aspect of them, but it's still just them they're channeling. So when we get to the races that don't look like us, even if we're talking about just embodying in and not seeing it outside, because remember, the outside is just a reflection of the inside. But people don't believe stuff until they see the outside. But if you're really rejecting something, and as a culture, we reject anything when it has to do with galactic beings because we have a fear of it, right? So all of a sudden, you'll go through these certain times when the collectives go through a big galactic phase again, where everyone's seeing aliens. But they always look the same, very non-human. You notice they're never trying to take over Earth. They're just kind of flying around. People see them falling out of the sky. Gets people's attention, you know, because it is an aspect of them trying to get their attention. You know, it is trying to wake them up. It's an activation to their galactic consciousness. It's just an activation outside in instead of inside out in this sense. It's a way to wake up the collectives. It's a big galactic phase we're going through right now, where it's more mainstream, and it's not like just some people in the corner whispering about aliens. You know, it's not just some movie I saw. Now everyone's kind of talking about it. Could it really be that they really are? Now, when we talk about aliens, we also talk about, well, we are the aliens. There's been a lot of movies where, oh, the aliens were us, right, all along, and that is true. From one consciousness perspective, we do embody in all those aspects. We have those capabilities. A lot of technology that's come through in the past, you know, decades has been through galactic remembrances, galactic intelligence. People dream of a lot of different things. You know, a lot of great scientific discoveries were discovered in the dream state when you have access to all these consciousnesses, including galactic consciousness. It's not just it's not just a one-time thing. There's not a coincidence that chemotherapy reverts people back to more of a galactic look, in a sense, because of the hair loss, and because it cleans out their human DNA. It starts to kill off their human DNA. It puts them kind of in a higher purge factor of human consciousness, in a sense. It starts to purge their body. That's why when I talk about, when I do mention cancer, a lot of people choose that route, and I kind of use that as choose that route because it's an unconscious choice that they chose that route to clear out a lot of their human programming in a very quick way. Where a lot of times it gets kind of tripped up is if you reprogram the body again with the same human consciousness, or if you're then going to reprogram the body with higher consciousness. It's a way to it's a quick way to rid the body. If you've really been rejecting the other ways, your consciousness might be showing you what to do, and you're still kind of rejecting that. You'll see certain people will build that in. Certain people have built that in. I don't like to get too much into that because it kind of blows the mind in a lot of sense when we look at all the choices we have. But there's not a coincidence in that. There's not a coincidence that I feel like a lot of times when I talk to people very much into their galactic aspects, they're normally men, because it does bring them that detached nature. You notice that people shaving their heads, big and in again. You know, a lot of people are kind of trying to revert back a little bit to that galactic, more of that galactic look and that galactic aspect of themselves, unconsciously not knowing what they're doing. We start getting into galactic intelligence. I went through a lot of galactic, how do I want to say it? The word completely slipped my mind. Embodiment in 2021, and it was much better than, for me, a lot of the soul work I've been doing. It was it was refreshing in a sense. A lot of people kind of really embrace that. If you've been going through a lot of deep soul work, you get to the galactic part and you're like, whoo, this is so much better. It's a very no nonsense. It helps you cut a lot of cords to things that within our human reality we're not ready to cut cords to yet. It really helps us get to a place where we can sever a lot of ties to old realities too. So if anyone is having an issue, you know, having an issue trying to cut cords of certain things from a soul perspective, and things that you know or you're attached to from your human aspect, because your soul doesn't get attached, but from your human aspect, ask to embody in your galactic aspects. You know, ask for your galactic name. Some people have the same name because they come from the same lineage, as far as the galactic races go. A lot of times I'll say when we meet galactic, you meet a lot of people talk about soul family. When you meet galactic family, it's a totally different interaction. You know, soul family, you kind of want to spend more time together. Galactic family, you're kind of on a mission to get something done together, but you don't really want to huddle up and all stay kumbaya around the fire a long period of time. We don't want to do that. You know, it's kind of like, let's get our mission done. You can always tell people in a real galactic phase, they talk about missions. They'll talk about, and not a human experience, it's a human experiment. It's definitely different wording they use, you know, when they're in their galactic phases, when they're embodying in those galactic aspects. But there's still certain times when a lot of people get into the God's head. They'll get into the crystal skulls, you know, they'll get into I know I got into a crystal skull, and it was kind of frightening when I looked at it, because we don't realize how much we fight that part of ourselves, fight those aspects of ourselves. And it was this big, I used it actually on a stream once, but it distorted the stream so bad that I named her Monica. I couldn't use her anymore setting in my stream and show it, kind of share it with people, because all the audio went haywire. So she was such a high vibration, it was I think it was an amethyst kind of a skull. It's the only one I've ever bought. I've never been too into the crystal skulls. But a lot of people will get into the crystal skulls, and then I talked a little while back about our foreheads getting bigger. Because as our foreheads get bigger, then we start to come into our own galactic intelligence. We kind of start to become the crystal skulls, and we also start to embody in the knowledge of all the crystal skulls. So if you haven't worked with crystal skulls, I highly recommend you get a crystal skull and start to work with it. I've now gifted Monica to someone else to work with, but when you first see it, she's scary. Because she had a very, the very air quote alien look to her. She was not what you would look at and see as a typical, a typical human looking skull. It was a very alien type skull. And I had to work through the fear of working with her, because we have a lot of fear to this. And it causes a lot of fear to be cleared in the collective. That's why it's kind of this mass thing right now about, one, it also is conspiracy theory, so it gets into everyone being lied to and being betrayed by people in power. So it has some of that in the collectives too. It's trying to clear that. It's kind of a mechanism to do that. It never seems weird to people that everyone sees these aliens that never look human. They're all over the place. All this technology, but no one ever comes and takes over Earth. They just want to kind of fly around and show themselves to people. Or accidentally, show themselves to people. Because it's showing them, it's a way for people to clear their fear. It's a way for people to get over the fear of that sort of thing. Because fear clears when it comes up. A lot of times we don't know we have a fear of this till it comes up. The minute it comes up, we're like, oh shit, I did not know I was so afraid of that. Now I realize how afraid I am of that. And I didn't realize that before. And now I understand. I'm really, really scared of all these kind of things that are going on. So the more we embrace these things, the more we embrace all this stuff for ourselves, you'll find never be a need to actually see anything physically in front of you, because we embrace that part of us, and we can feel the fear. If you watch something on aliens, are you curious? Do you have a fear? Are you kind of curious, but there's still a fear? How do you feel about embodying those aspects of you? What stops you from looking at someone who talks about aliens, or talks about why did we always label that as that's weird, or that's someone who's not all there, that's someone who doesn't have all feet on the ground. In a sense, that's true. They don't have all their feet on the ground, because they're connecting to their crown chakra. They're connecting up, and that they're just connecting with a lot of the stuff around them. But it had a big stigma. But there's another reason it has a big stigma. And this is going to go more into conspiracy theory, but we're going to do it anyway. A lot of this stuff has a stigma to keep us in our human programming, which is technically not a victim state, even though we're going to clear a lot of victim energy when we break out of that state, but it keeps us in that victim state because we're kind of being, we're being lied to. We don't know really what's going on. But if we're allowed to know all this stuff, it opens us up. It's an activation for us. All the different things going on. Oh, so many people seeing things, so many mainstream, air quote, normal people that are still very ingrained and connected into human realities, activating from a human consciousness, see all this stuff now, because the collectives are going through it. They're going through this kind of mass galactic, it is a galactic activation. It's for them to clear their fear. It's for them to see, like, wait, and it just puts more pressure on the government to say, hey, what is going on here? Why are so many people seeing these things? Why do we continue to see these things? What's the deal? So it's a continual, there's a billion reasons why it happens. These are just some of them. What we want to look at is, how do we feel when we see it on TV? Or if you see them in person, if you have been a witness to an alien sighting or something. Remember, it is just a part of you. It is just a part of you. But because they don't look like us, these are not the races that a lot of people want to channel. They're not the ones we want to talk about. They're not the ones we want to embody. I don't remember if I mentioned before I kind of wrapped up, when you do meet galactic family, you know it, because you do have something you're supposed to do together, something you're supposed to create together, but you can't stay together long, because normally everyone has kind of a different mission. and we don't want to stay together. And a lot of that has to do with all the galactic wars we have been through, different galactic races not liking one another. That's why you can find people you feel very strongly pulled to, and you really want to get stuff done together, but after so long, they don't feel like soul family, but they're kind of something else. They're not your soul family. They are galactic family. They come from a different lineage for you. And we don't want to all be huddled up together. I mean, I know one of my I'd call her galactic sisters, that we did with some work together. But at the end of the day, we couldn't be together for a long period of time. We really didn't want to be. We came and did what we had to do together, and that was the end of it. We couldn't be together for a really, really long period of time. We really weren't able to do that. So when we talk about any kind of UFOs, extraterrestrials, any of that kind of the fun topics, the most important thing to look at is how we feel about it. And you see some people are going to go into mass hysteria and mass fear about it. You'll see some people that think it's kind of interesting. It's kind of an activation for them. They kind of want to look at the documentaries. Now, are they ready to know that it's them? A lot of them aren't. And that's why you never see the ones that look like us. They don't cause any fear. If you saw aliens that look just like us, you wouldn't have the fear. You wouldn't have it wouldn't have that same visceral reaction. I always think it's interesting that they always kind of look the same. It's that same alien all the time. Before anyone tells me they saw an alien, let me draw it for you. I can tell you exactly what it's going to look like. Those two big black eyes, kind of like the ones you saw in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with the Indiana Jones movie. That's how they all look, and they're tall, and they're gangly, and they have this really misshapen head. Because a lot of people are remembering the same aspects. They're remembering the same aspect, and it's going to be the one they reject the most because of the way it looks. And it doesn't look human. Do some research on different galactic races. Listen to some of the galactic channelings if you feel called to do that. Listen to some of the people who will channel what they would call aliens. There are a lot of very famous content creators in this kind of space that will still channel. And they're still calling it channeling because they haven't embodied in the aspect yet. You will find when you embody in your galactic aspects, it is such a breath of fresh air from your soul aspects. Because they don't come with all the baggage and digging through all the baggage. Now, you have to do one journey or the other journey. Some people go up and do the galactic aspects first, then they go in and do the soul work. You're going to do one or the other, first. Most people go soul first. I have had some people that were just really into the galactic stuff first. I never was really that into, the stars or even the planets. I really was never really into that stuff. I do feel like it's a way that men are awakened a little bit more. Sometimes they'll go that route first, even though it's an unconscious thing they're doing. They don't really realize they're doing it. And they're going a certain way first. Because it also gives them that detachment from everything, which is kind of a trope of, males, that they kind of have this detachment for anything. They kind of are wired a little differently. I think they're wired a little more up the galactic side than the soul side for a majority of them. But eventually we have to bring everything in, and we have to bring everything down into the body. That's when we talk about embodiment, but we're not just talking about angel aspects or mermaid aspects or all these aspects of us. We're talking about galactic aspects too. But because of the connotation of that, because of the fear of that, we like to shut that down. No one wants to be the alien on the street. No one wants to say, oh yeah, we're already here. Why are we looking for them? We're already here. We just don't embody it. We don't own it in a sense, because there's so much fear around it. So when we really start to ask questions about everything people see, when we really start to ask questions about how long everyone has seen different things, and the capabilities, that all these extraterrestrial have, the technology they have, and we wonder, where does our technology come from? It's all rooted in that. It's all rooted in galactic intelligence. I'll say different things before I sleep at night. One of them I'll always say is, I want to continue to activate galactic intelligence. I want to continue to activate that. We are human computers, and that's just more knowledge, more information. When I was growing up, we had a lot of different movies about space. You know, you kind of see how the space thing has changed over time. You know, a lot of different, and you know, even when people first explored space, but remember, all that's inside of us too. It's just projected out. I did a whole video, I think it's up on my YouTube channel, about the planets are inside of us. So in, you know, different planets that we have not embodied in, the aspects of those planets embodied in and purified those aspects within ourselves, they affect us more than once we have. You know, Mercury goes retrograde inside of us. Well, once we have embodied in the purest aspects of Mercury, it doesn't bother us when it goes retrograde anymore. It doesn't bother, once we embody in clear communication, and we're able to do that under, no matter who we're talking to, no matter what the reality is, Mercury retrograde is not going to bother you anymore. The whole part of Mercury retrograde is for us to learn how to communicate and over communicate, because the planet, air quote planet, that promotes communication is no longer going in the right direction. So it also teaches us to kind of rework how we would communicate. It causes us to kind of redo how we would normally do that. But all those things are inside of us. How they affect us shows us if we've embodied them in or not, if it bothers us or not. You know, we talk the same thing about our signs, astrological signs. There's yin and yang. You know, there's human aspects of those signs and there's the purer aspects of those signs. And when we go through ascension, we start to purify what is more of a human aspect of that sign, and we only pull on, in a sense, we only will embody and keep and transcend the rest, the pure aspects of those. They're still very important to us. Certain planets affect us in certain ways. You know, if we're never been a go-getter, and we're not, I'm going to use the word aggressive here, but in aggressive, not as in war aggressive, though when you talk about the planet Mars, that's the first thing everyone talks about. It's more of the aggressive planet. It's the planet of war. When you talk about Mars, if you've never stood up for yourself, you're going to find it a lot easier to do when Mars is in, you know, in your sign, in a sense, than when it's retrograde. Now, you're going to have a harder time when it's retrograde. You're going to have to step up more when it's retrograde. But the minute you learn to step up and speak up for yourself, then you find it's not going to bother you anymore, because you've now embodied in those pure aspects of those planets. All that stuff used to really, even the moon cycles, you find the same thing. You know, all these things used to, they're different gateways, they're different portals, a different way to show you what can I work on next. That's why ascension never ends, because there's always more to embody. There's always more to clear out of our body. We're talking about multi-dimensional clearings. We're talking about galactic clearings. We're talking about not only human karma, ancestral karma, galactic karma, you know, abundance karma. You're talking about your galactic Akash, not just your human Akash. You know, when I see that, it's always a buzzword for me when I say clearing your Akash. Which one are you going to clear? Your human Akash? Are you going to clear your galactic Akash? But what I was going to say, and I was kind of got off beat a bit, but when we talk about different movies, it used to be movies about aliens and space. It was really big in the 80s. You know, you had Star Wars kind of come in the 70s, and you had Star Trek come in. I guess Star Trek was really in the 60s. All these things kind of activate that space stuff, you know, that space stuff. That sounds, the knowledge, you know, the knowledge of other planets, the knowledge of other people out there, you know, but everything is inside of us. We are the entire universe. So in our entire universe within us, why would there not be a different galactic race out there? Different ones that don't look like us. Some that do look like us. You know, if you're having an issue, and I wasn't so much into my galactic races. I felt like I had an issue till I got my crystal skull, my alien crystal skull, and I was working with my crystal skull. That I could feel a lot of that fear dissipate. You know, you can feel a lot of that, but if you still feel that, start asking it to embody in your Palladian aspect. Start looking at Palladian with the Palladian race. It looks more human. And a lot of people have an easier time with it. You know, they have an easier time kind of looking at that going, yeah, okay, that could be me. I could see there'd be like aspects of that in me, you know. And a lot of other times, this is kind of going to be a side note. And I do want to check my chat before I go. But a lot of stuff that starts happening to our body has to do with star particles. It has to do with, you know, sometimes your skin will start to look like it has like glitter in it. When I get out in the sun for long periods of time, I'll start to glow that'll have like glitter, and a lot of people call those like star particles, will start to come in your skin. You'll start to see that. A lot of the stuff that starts happening to our body is galactic related. And that's where the fear comes in. Because, you know, we don't want to turn into look like a galactic being, but you do start to see your body start to shift. And there are certain things in the body that all of a sudden your skin will do some weird stuff. Your body will start to do some weird stuff. I said your forehead starts to get bigger because your cranium starts to, your cranial expansions start to occur. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on with the galactic stuff, and this has been kind of a quick talk on it. And that's probably why today I wanted to do different, what they call halo eye makeup, or a halo eye, which I was probably more of the galactic, maybe more of a galactic look, though I think I'll maybe take it a little lighter next time. But there's different things we can do that embody in our galactic stuff. It doesn't have to be, you know, as straightforward. It can be fun. Just when we talk about mermaid aspects and really embodying in all those aspects, what comes with that is sacred remembrances, sacred memories of those times when you were those things, when you are now technically still all those things. So you clear the parts that are not going to assist. You can kind of clear the parts that are distorted. A lot of times when we get into mermaid aspects, you know, we're clearing a lot of mermaids where we would steal. You know, people have the good mermaid aspect. I'm gonna use good and bad here just to make a point. The good mermaid aspect and the naughty, and the naughty mermaid aspect that would kind of go in and steal and kind of steal stuff from the pirates and stuff like that, the humans and things like that. So you'll have your Marian mermaid, which is more the pure aspect, and you'll have your Atlantean mermaid, which was kind of more the naughty type of mermaid that wasn't as above board as, you know. The sirens are the same way when you get into the siren song. So there's a lot of different distortions in some of those aspects. And the same thing with the galactic aspects. There is that, I don't want to call it a hatred for humanity, but there's definitely detachment in humanity, and there's a non-caring for humanity. So I know when I went through that phase, I was very direct and I was kind of detached. You know, when I was working on a lot of those embodiments, I was very detached from a lot of stuff. I'm very direct. I remember telling this story where it was some person that asked me to something. I think it was a happy hour or something. I don't remember what it was, but I had this person so afraid to even say anything to me that they were even afraid to invite me on like an hour's notice to something. The person was scared to death because I was really in my galactic phase. It was like, get to the point, you know, what do you want? What do you want? Just get to what you want. Stop beating around the bush on what it is you want. So it can come off, very harsh because it does not have that soft side. Your Syrian aspect is the galactic aspect. It does not have that soft side. It's almost like the flip side of the God aspect when you're in your soul. When you're in your soul embodiment phase, Syrian is sort of the flip to that. So when you really get into this stuff, it is a lot of fun. And it shouldn't be something that we look at in fear, but look at as excitement, especially when you start seeing so many people and looking at so many people and the collectives really kind of opening up to that side of them. Because if they weren't at a frequency to be open at all, they wouldn't see it, okay? There has to be something in them that wants to see it, and it's time for them to see that this is still just a reflection of them. And there's nothing to fear, but it is clearing fear. And that's why it happens at such a mass scale. And I assume it's going to continue to. And you're going to see a lot of people really, really afraid of, alien invasion. And you're going to start to see that quite a bit too, I think, as more of that fear clears and more of that kind of... what's the word? It's funny, I'm watching that show Secret Invasion, and there's part of that where they have shape-shifting aliens in there that can look like humans. They can also look like aliens, green aliens, and they want to kind of live with humans. And it's like, but humans aren't tolerant. They're not gonna. They don't want a green race walking around next to them. They don't. Now they're okay with the people that look like them, because they kind of look human, and that's fine, whatever. But we don't want that walking around. And just kind of think of yourself in that. We are shapeshifters in a sense. A different aspect of us come out all the time. And that's when we get to certain parts of embodiment where you can look at other people and see what aspect they are. Oh, now they're bringing out their galactic aspect. That's their Syrian aspect. Now they're in their angel aspect. Look at all the aspects of them. It might not be the one they can hold. They still might predominantly be holding their human aspect. And that might still be the one they're acting from, but you'll see shades of all these aspects. They just haven't embodied them in, meaning they can live from them. And once you embody them in, you kind of start to merge them all together. But when you're in that embodiment phase of certain ones, you're kind of all of just that one. That's your predominant one because you're embodying it in. It hasn't blended in with all the other ones yet. And that can take months or years depending on how much you're fighting that embodiment phase. And some people get to the point where they can do it energetically in an hour or 15 minutes, whereas before it might have taken them 3 months to embody in an aspect. But they've got to a certain part of their consciousness and a certain part of their ascension where they just go with the organic process and they can embody in right away. You'll hear a lot of people talk about Lyrian aspects and that kind of more cat-like, type of race. But a lot of cats, if you're really into cats, you might want to look into I think it's Lemurian. That's not Lemurian. Lyran. That's what it is. That's Lyran. I think you'll see it as Lyran. Don't be afraid to feel what you feel. The fear is the point. The fear is always the point. What we feel when we see something, that's the point. It's not what we see. It's the fear we feel when we see it. It's the excitement we feel when we see it. It's the happiness we feel when we see it. It's what it's activating in the body, whether it's activating it to come up so we know, okay, that's what happiness feels like, or it's activating it to clear it from the body. Oh, that's what fear, that all this fear is coming up to clear, because it keeps our body in a lower frequency. So don't discount any of it, and if you see people really afraid, about a lot of this stuff, and right now I think it's kind of more of a jokey, always kind of fun. It's kind of a fun thing. I have a feeling it might go a little bit beyond that as it continues to go, that you will see some people getting a lot more fear around the topic. But right now it's more of a lightheartedness around it, which, be open. I wasn't big into my galactic phase either. I had a lot of fear around it too, because I didn't want my body to start shifting. And a lot of the ways people said their body would shift, like their body would glow at certain times and under certain light, their hands would look kind of more alien and things like that. So those are parts of that where you're like, but people have to be at a certain frequency to see that too. That's kind of like when you're around kids and if you're really into your angelic aspect, and you're around little children, you'll find they look at you funny. They'll keep looking at you because you look different to them, because they can see through. They're at a different frequency. They're at a higher frequency, so they can see the higher frequency things going on with you. They can see, people talk about your aura a lot, and people who are in a certain higher frequencies, they'll say, oh, I see your aura and it's this color, or now you look this color. People will see different faces on you. Years ago when I would do energy work on people, I had one lady say, like, she opened her eyes when I was working on her, and it totally different. It wasn't me. It was like an older lady dressed in a different type of robe that was working on her, but it was not me, because she could see a different aspect of me. Because when I was working on her, you're bringing the body up to a higher frequency. You're activating higher frequency light to run through them, to bring their body up to a certain frequency, so they're open and can see more. That's why when you reach higher frequencies, all of a sudden you can see more. You can see all of a sudden the colors are brighter. Food might taste different. You start to see people a different way. People that you might not have, I'm going to take this to an attraction thing, but people you might not have been attracted to, and it doesn't mean romantic attraction, but attracted to do something with. All of a sudden you feel like, no, we're supposed to do something together. We're supposed to create something together. That's what happens when you start to hit higher frequencies. That's what happens when all of a sudden more people are starting to see different galactic things going on, because they're at a higher frequency. They're able to see through the dimensions, and they're able to see different aspects of them. They just don't correlate it as different aspects of them. So, okay. That went a lot longer than I thought I was going to go on that. Okay. I don't have any questions, which kind of surprises me. Usually I get quite a few questions on the alien discussion when we talk about aliens, but I think that's about it, unless people have a question and I can go into it. I'm trying to think of any other, like when you do, a lot of people just, like I say, they'll get their galactic name and it's kind of fun. You can ask for your galactic name. There's a lot of power that can come with your galactic name. And when you want to call on that aspect, to me, my galactic name kind of embodied in a lot of different ones. It was kind of a big, when I first kept hearing it, you know, I was like, Lazaron, what is that? Why does that keep running in my head? What does that mean? I wrote it down. And when I was in that embodiment phase of to me, that was a galactic name that embodied a lot of different galactic aspects. When I wanted to pull on that aspect, when I was still embodying in that aspect, I would just want to embody and I would just say, I want to embody in Lazaron, because that was that powerful, had a kick to it. You know, and I was like, that's a pretty cool galactic name. But like I said, I've seen people who have the same one, and they would meet different people and they would talk about different parts of ascension, and they would have the same name because they came from that same lineage. So it can be a lot of fun. It's supposed to be, when we embrace it and we stop fighting the process of what we think ascension is, and we start just enjoying, you know, all the possibilities. And I will say, once again, the galactic phase, way more fun, and you're always going to be in both. You know, I kind of went soul first, then more galactic, then you kind of went soul and galactic at the same time. There are certain content creators, ascension creators, that went galactic first. You can kind of tell them, you know, when you see their material, that they're very galactic very early on. Then they go back and do the soul work. There's all different, everyone's going to be in a different place with it. And even now, you're going to see some people that are still going to be anti-alien race and anti-anything talking about it, because they're not even in that part, you know. But then you have this whole other collective that's seeing kind of everything all at once. Like I said, they always look the same. It's always things that does not look human, and it all kind of looks the same, because it's also pulling on that collective, the collective consciousness on that aspect. And everyone kind of remembers being that aspect and being, you know, in that aspect. So. Okay, I think that's it for today. So I will see everyone next time, and embrace your galactic aspects and ancestry. I feel the need to throw that in. All right, bye.